Hi, we're objective-oriented programmers, and this is our demo video for our expense tracker. So, for our team, I, Victoria Condos, was project manager, Elijah Dawkins was the editor, Simon Miller was master of specific technology, and Austin O'Malley was tester, and Elizabeth Stevenson was our secretary. So the problem that our app addresses is that there's no simple way for a beginner money manager to keep up with their finances. So they need a way to track incoming revenues, outgoing expenses, and the investments that they currently hold.
The goals of the app are to assist the user in tracking monetary transactions, to organize the investments in certain categories, and to provide a structured summary of the user's revenue and spending. We completed these goals in the features of our app. User pain points are problems that occur at different levels of the customer experience. Our app eliminates the pain points of incoming and outgoing money being hard to organize, and that is difficult to understand the stock market. Our app makes it easier and simple for the user to understand these two things.
The technologies used for building were Visual Studio Code, GitHub, React Native, Firebase, and AlphaVantage API. Visual Studio Code was our coding IDE, and GitHub is where we stored the code. React Native was our coding framework, which included many libraries for our features. Firebase was the backend database we used to store information. AlphaVantage API gives the user real-time investment information. The technologies used to deploy our app were Expo and Android Emulator. Expo built the APK, while Android Emulator displayed our app.
The technologies that did not work too well were Firebase and Expo. Firebase was really hard to configure and get the hang of. It took a lot of trial and error to get it going. We reviewed a lot of Q&A boards to see what the errors were, what we got. There was also disconnectivity issues with it saying that it wasn't connected even though the right settings were in place for it to be connected. Expo used to be our emulator, but then we realized that what worked on Expo sometimes did not work on the Android emulator, which is what our professor used to run our app. We figured our way around it, but it was really difficult to solve this error. The technology that worked well was GitHub, because we can see each other's branches and we can see where we were in the GitHub network.
Hi, my name's Simon Miller, and today I'm going to be doing a brief demo of our app. So in our example, we're using a college student named Andy Anderson who wants to become smarter with her money. She works at a local boutique and makes about $450 and spends about $120 on basic necessities, and she wants to organize her weekly spendings better. She's getting more involved in the stock market and just bought some shares of Tesla stock. So to start, we can create an account and enter her information into the text fields. We can enter a username, password, and email and create an account. Once we've navigated to the home screen, we can click on the New Transaction button, which takes us to the New Transaction screen. Here we can add expenses and revenues to our account. We can start by adding an income of $450 from her paycheck and add that to her account. We can add a category like income and choose a recurrence period and add the revenue. Once we're done adding the revenue, we can add the $120 that she spends on basic necessities during the week. Once we add all of this information, we can then click Add Expense and add it to our account. Once these are added, we can go to the summary page and get a total summary of all of her net spending and net revenues. We can then click on the Print Full Summary button, which takes us to the print screen, which shows a full log of all of her spending and all of her incomes. Once we're back at the home screen, we can then click on the Manage Investments button, which takes us to the page where a user can manage their investments. In our case, Andy has 4 shares of Tesla, so we can add that to her account. Once we add these stocks to our account, they'll be saved to our account, and the user can then buy more stocks, which show how many shares they own, the total value of all of their shares, and the current price of the stock. Once all of these stocks are added, we can then go back to the home screen and sign out when the user is done using the app. Clicking the sign out button will then take the user back to the sign in screen and allow new users to sign in on the app.
Here are some of the lessons that we learned throughout this project. I learned that just because code works on the emulator doesn't mean it's going to work on the APK file, because sometimes things would work, but then once it was translated into APK, it ended up just crashing the app as soon as you tried to view it.
My lesson learned was know how to merge on GitHub. It got super confusing where we were and whose code was where, so make sure that you have all the code straight.
One of the biggest lessons that I learned was the difference between pushing and adding to Firebase. We had a lot of issues where I would try to add things to Firebase and it would delete everything that we had in Firebase. So that was one of the biggest things that I learned.
One lesson that I learned is that just because Expo works today doesn't mean that it'll work tomorrow. Many times during our app development process, Expo would update and would mess up various functions, and sometimes certain functions would only work on various versions.
I learned that deprecated packages will ruin everything. When coding my page for our app, I tried to use this drop-down function known as Picker that used to be part of React Native, but over time it has deprecated and I don't really use it as much anymore. For me to keep using the Picker, even though it deprecated, led to our app page having issues and even the arrows not even showing up at the end for the drop-downs. So I ended up having to change it to something else that had not deprecated and it had its own independencies. For more information, take a look at our GitHub repository at github.com/scCapstone/objective-oriented-programmers, or take a look at our website at sccapstone.github.io/objective-oriented-programmers.
Thank you.